a little caprese salad, and some kind of miso green beans. So kind of like a little miso flair to today's meal, kind of something light. We've had a lot of really delicious barbecue on our trip. So let's start by rinsing. I've got my white rice in here. This is jasmine or jasmati rice. I think it's jasmati rice. I'm gonna put it in my mesh thing, and we're gonna rinse it until we have like just a little quick rinse until we got all like the little creaminess out. This is going to give you a much better end product towards the end. It's going to make it so your rice isn't mushy and it's really fluffy. You don't need to do it for a whole lot. I really just do it for about 30 seconds, shake off any of the extra, and it makes a world's different. So I'm going to add my 3 cups of water into my pan with my 2 cups of jasmati rice. And then I got a little bit of rice milk going there. I'm gonna put in a scoop of chicken bouillon. Let me turn on my back things. We're gonna turn it on high, and then once it starts to boil, a good boil, we'll bring it down to low, and then we'll cover it. So I'm gonna put in a scoop of chicken bouillon. And this is about probably a tablespoon. But you want it to have a lot of flavor in it. You could do just plain white rice, but my kids love like kind of a chicken flavored rice. So I just put a scoop of chicken bouillon in it. And then we're gonna add in some green onions, and we're gonna let it start kind of cooking up. So, we're gonna green onions and fresh oregano. So we're gonna have that. I'm going to take the white parts of all of my green onions, and I'm gonna put them in there because it'll have about 30 minutes of cook time, which will really allow that onion flavor to come out. And then I'm gonna save some of my tips for my salmon afterwards to kind of garnish it there. So we're gonna start with the white parts of all of my green onions. And then I'm gonna reserve about a big handful of these to stay for my garnish on my salmon towards the end. The green onions will play really great with the miso glaze. We'll just add a nice flavor to it. I have some fresh oregano from my garden, and I'm just gonna pull off, and we're gonna do a quick mince, and we're gonna add these into that rice as well. I feel like the oregano and the green onions and the chicken will have a really great flavor profile to it. I'm also so we were gone for 2 weeks, and my parents were really nice enough to water my garden for me this year, so nothing died out. And my herb garden is just like exploding, which is wonderful, which is what I want, because normally I'm like over picking it. So my basil is really set. I got some really great basil leaves. And I still need to go to like Home Depot or Lowe's and grab some more herbs to plant in there, but I'm really happy how big they are. We'll be able to use a lot of fresh herbs this week.
You have a question? How did the kids like the trip?
Oh, they loved it. It was wonderful. I mean, when you get back from a vacation, you sometimes feel like you need a vacation from a vacation because you're so exhausted from like nonstop going. But I will say I love it. It was so much fun. You know, we did Indiana Dunes National Park. Then we did some hiking in the Nicollet, Chickamauga, and Ottawa National Forests. And then we went to Voyageurs National Park. So we had lots of hiking. And then the last 5 days, we stopped at my sister's lake house in Minnesota. And I'm from a big family, so there was like 30 of us there, lots of cousins for the kids to play with, so it was a lot of fun. And of course, lots of boating, tubing, fireworks because of the 4th of July. So it was a lot of fun.
You got a question? Did you make it to Six Flags?
We did not. So I forgot I had a meeting this morning that I needed to be home for, and it was storming. So we opted, it was going to be a rainy day there, so we decided to. But we did tell the kids we were going to take them in a couple weeks to maybe one of the, there's a Kentucky Kingdom, and then there's a Holiday World. So we might do that for them in a couple of weeks. So I'm glad we didn't tell them about it, but when we looked up, the weather wasn't going to cooperate, and I had to get back for an early morning meeting. Okay, we've got my rice heating up over there with my green onions and oregano and the chicken bouillon. So we're gonna let that come to a boil. And now we're gonna make a little bit of our miso glaze to put over our salmon to cook up. So I've got some miso paste, which is delicious if you've never used it before. It just adds a great little kind of salty flavor to it. So we're gonna do a nice kind of good scoop. This is about a tablespoon or so. I'm gonna also be using some of this in my green beans. So we've got a little bit of miso paste here. We're gonna use a little bit of sesame oil, about a tablespoon. And then I've got some coconut aminos. We're gonna use about a tablespoon of this as well. Let's see, are we not? There we go. Just eyeball it. Now, normally I would use a rice vinegar or a mirin, but I didn't have any, so I'm gonna use just a smidge of white vinegar. You want that acidity in here to bring it, but it's a bit stronger than rice vinegar or mirin. So I'm just gonna use a little bit, like a half a teaspoon, but I want the acidity in there to kind of cut through for this glaze. We're gonna add about a teaspoon of ginger paste. We're gonna use powdered ginger. You'll wanna use about a half a teaspoon, a little bit less. Powdered ginger is a bit more spicy than like this ginger paste. And if you're using fresh ginger, you'll probably need a little bit more depending on how you cut it up. And then we're gonna add in, let me grab a spoon, about, I don't need that big of a spoon, about a big heaping spoonful. So this is probably a tablespoon of garlic. And then I've got some honey. So there are a lot of different components in it, but they will all work really well to it. We're gonna add about, I wanna say, a tablespoon of honey. You don't need that much, but you want it to have a nice kind of sweetness flavor. And then we're gonna top it off with my favorite, I love it, Japanese barbecue sauce. So you want about 2 tablespoons of this. This has got a soy sauce base to it, but it's not as salty as soy sauce. It's a little bit more sweet. So we're gonna use about 2 tablespoons. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mush this up, and then we're gonna kind of glaze over our salmon with this. And then I'll add a little bit of butter in here, and we'll reheat it up, and then when our salmon is done, we'll reglaze it with that after we kind of heated it up some too. But we'll do a little bit of it cold over our salmon to really bring in the flavors. So right now I'm just kind of mushing it so that we have the big pieces of the miso get broken up. We'll have a little bit of a nice kind of a thick glaze here, but it will have a lot of flavor.
You have a comment that someone got hooked on the Japanese barbecue sauce.
It's so good. It is so good. My brother-in-law introduced it to me several years ago, and I have not been able to go back. It is so good. And they say barbecue sauce, but it's not a barbecue sauce. It's not like what the Americans think of a barbecue sauce. It's so good though. And now you can pretty much find it everywhere. Look at me making messes already. Okay, let me grab my little basting brush here. And we're gonna season up our salmon. We are going to be reheating this, so don't worry about dipping back and forth. We're gonna heat it all up, and we'll kill any of the things that kind of go back together. Here we go. Just nice little flavor on it. And just, you wanna really coat it, get each one kind of coated up so those flavors really marinate into the salmon. And again, we will add some more at the very end as well after we're done cooking them. Here we go. Let me grab my tong, and we're gonna flip them over so we can get that marinade on both sides. And this is gonna give you a really good flavor, but you definitely, if you really want the flavor to shine through, you definitely wanna save some, heat it up, and drizzle it over at the end to give you a bit stronger of a flavor. Or if you are more head of the game than I am, you could actually marinate the salmon in this. You know, you could make it during the morning and have it marinate all day, and then you'd have lots of that flavor in it. But you know me, I'm always the last minute. What are we going to have for dinner tonight? But I had it was, you know, coming back from being gone from your house for almost essentially 15 days, you know, there's nothing left that's fresh that's left in your house. So it was shopping, lots of grocery shopping today, hitting, you know, Costco and Aldi's, making sure I've got everything for like restarting everything. You know, it's a big thing coming back. You're like, gosh, I have no milk. I like woke up and my kids are like, what are we gonna have for breakfast? And I'm like, well, I have no eggs and I have no milk. I was like, whatever you guys want, anything you want. And of course, Evie was like, can I have candy? And I was like, no, anything but candy. I was like, you could have dry cereal, so you could make like a little cereal Chex Mix. I had applesauce pouches. You know, it's just funny when you're gone that long, and we didn't get in till like 1:30 last night because it's a long drive from Minnesota. So there was a lot of like waiting that we had to do. Okay, let's get our onions chopped up for our green beans, and then we're gonna prep things. Once my rice is heated up, we'll put that lid on it and get it cooking. That's like the one thing in our meal that's gonna take the longest. So I've got one yellow onion here. And we are going to cut off, let me remove this whole outer layer. I just take it, I don't even try to fight with the onion for that. I just remove the whole top layer because it's not worth the work. And that top one is always kind of chewy to begin with. And since we're gonna do these a pan fry of kind of like a pan sear or saute of our green beans, so I'm gonna do long skinny strips, and then we will start cooking them up in our oil because I want them to kind of caramelize first before we add in our green beans. Here we go. So I've got mine. Let's get this pan going over here. We're gonna add in a little bit of olive oil as well as some sesame oil because I really want that kind of miso flavor to come out with the sesame oil, and these that will pair nicely. So we're gonna add I'm gonna start with about a tablespoon of olive oil, and then we're gonna add about half a tablespoon of sesame oil. Sesame oil has a lot of flavor, so I try to minimize using it purely. I like to mix it with another one.
You have a question? Were you live this morning?
We did not go live this morning. I had to do so many errands to get our household back together, so no live this morning. But we did post a video. We were kind of my sister's lake house, love it, middle of nowhere. We had like no internet connection whatsoever. So we had a couple videos and whatnot to post of that. And we're uploading and working on our hiking video shorts to come out too as well. But we did post our cabbage roll video this morning from that big kind of cook-a-thon I made for my parents before we left. So we had that ready. Okay, let me get our onions. I've got them in the oil. I'm gonna break them up.
You got a question? Where'd you go for a vacation?
So it was kind of an all-over one. So we started out, let me catch that before it goes, there we go. We drove up to, our campsite was actually in Michigan, and we explored a little bit of Michigan, but we went to Indiana Dunes National Park, which is it's a new national park. It just was created in 2019, and it was so nice. It was really hot there, but we did these great hikes. We did this one, I think everyone talks about how it was probably our favorite thing we did on the vacation was this 3-dune challenge where you had to hike up these 3 sand dunes. And I didn't know hiking up sand dunes is so hard. It is much harder than I thought. After we kind of completed the first dune, I was like, oh no, what have I gotten us into? Can we even complete this? But we did, we persevered. It was only about, I think it's little under 2 miles, but it took us about 2.5 hours to complete because walking up sand is like taking a step and then you like slide down. So it's like little baby steps. And it was really hard, but it was really fun. Everyone talks about it. We got like if you complete it, you get a free bumper sticker from the visitor center. So we got our bumper sticker, and then I had to get everybody a little shirt for it. But that was so much fun. And then we went and of course swam in Lake Michigan and did some more hikes around there and visited some historical sites. And then we, we drove halfway to Voyagers Park and we stopped in Hayward, Wisconsin. I turn on my back one and we're gonna get this guy heating up just a little. And we did some hikes there. We explored the National Forest there, and we did a little walkable zoo and a little like fishing Hall of Fame. So kind of more of a laid back. And then we ended our trip, our big family trip, hiking camping trip in Voyagers National Park, where we did hikes around there, explored the lakes. We got so close to Canada because the national park is actually split between Canada and the U.S. that even my husband's cell was like, welcome to Canada. So we were really, really close there. The weather was wonderful. It was like 60, 70 degrees. Much better than Indiana, which was at like 100 degree heat index. So, but we had a lot of fun. Give this one more stir. And then I'm gonna turn it down low, lid on. Got our onions going. Let's start. I'm gonna start out seeing what I want to do next. Let's start heating up a little bit of oil for our salmon. And again, I'm gonna do a little bit of olive oil with a pinch of sesame oil in it, just to give you more of that kind of Asian flavor to it. But don't go too heavy on the sesame. Especially if you've never used it before, it has a really strong flavor, so less is more. We're gonna add probably like a teaspoon, a little couple of shakes in there. It'll be subtle, but not overpowering. Okay, while the oil is heating up and our onions are kind of getting a little saute on, we're gonna also do a little caprese salad. I love tomatoes. Look at this. Got a little bit of onion right here. Let's throw these in here. And some fresh mozzarella. And I told you my basil plants were just like popping. So I picked a couple leaves from each tree. And Jack helped me pick a couple leaves from each plant. More like he pulled out a plant practically. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And then he like threw them on the ground. And I was like, oh, now we get to pick them up and wash them really well. But he was like, what? Here you go. Okay, we're gonna slice our tomatoes for a caprese salad, which is gonna be just super simple. It's gonna be tomato, basil, fresh mozzarella, and then we're gonna put a little bit of balsamic glaze over it. So keeping it simple. These are Campari tomatoes, which I absolutely love because they have a whole bunch of flavor in them. But they're smaller than most, like your regular, vine tomato or your sandwich tomato, but they have a lot of flavor for a little one. And I think they're perfect for the ratio of a basil leaf to a bit of mozzarella to the tomato, like the caprese ratio. There we go, and we'll do a nice thing. And I will say, the best way to know whether your knife is dull is if you try to cut a tomato and your knife slides on the skin. It's not that your knife is bad, it's just dull, and you just need to sharpen it up. I sharpen mine up the old-fashioned way with just a honing steel, which kind of looks like a little sword. And it's really easy to sharpen them up. I always keep saying I need to do a video to show everyone how to do it. But your sharp knife is going to be your friend in the kitchen, because if you are using a dull knife, you're more likely to slip, and you're also pushing harder, which means you're more likely to cut yourself. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, let's get our first kind of layer of tomatoes out here. And steel and basil. And then I'm going to check on my oil. It's looking like it's getting nice and hot. I'm going to give our onions that we're kind of caramelizing up. I want the natural sugars to come out for our miso green beans. So this is our just our yellow onions that we have in a little bit of olive oil and a pinch of sesame oil for a nice little flavor. And then before I add my green beans in, I'm gonna add in some miso paste. Which one? This is my miso paste spoon. And I'm gonna add in about a half a tablespoon into our like onions, oils. Let this kind of flavor come out first. It looks like our oil is ready for it. I'm gonna turn this down to about a 4 over here. I'm gonna let this miso kind of heat up and flavor up. And let's put our first few layers of salmon in. When you're pan frying salmon, you wanna do presentation side down first. So if you were to have a skin on it, you would have the skin facing up and the bottom down. With mine, it doesn't really matter which side I kind of go down since it doesn't have a skin on it. But this is the bottom of the fillet. It has a little ridge. So this is the pretty side. And I want the pretty side down cooking first so that it looks nicer.
You got a question? What was the paste you put with the onions?
That is miso paste. So we're gonna do kind of a miso glaze on our green beans. And miso is made from soybean curd. It's a fermented soybean curd. It's really common in like Asian cuisines. It's salty flavor. It's delicious. It's kind of got that umami. I absolutely love it. And it kind of plays on the flavors that we're having with today's kind of meal. Let's check on my glaze back here that we heated it up. I'm gonna turn this down really low. And then let me grab a little bit of butter. There we go. I'm gonna add just a little bit of butter to it, just so it kind of gets a nice smooth texture and will run a little bit nicer when I pour it over my salmon. And the reason I'm kind of cooking it up is we basted our salmon in it. And this way, because I was basting it like you're cooking up, you're heating it up, you're getting rid of any of the germs. So just about a tablespoon of butter in there. And we're just gonna let that kind of melt in there. Give it a couple little stirs here. And this will also help bring out that nice kind of flavors from the garlic and the ginger. I'm gonna turn it off and let that butter melt, and then we'll bring it up a bit more. Okay. Now we've got our kind of our miso paste here. It's kind of coating all of our onions. I'm gonna add in my green beans. We're gonna let them saute. And then towards the end, we're actually gonna add a little bit of Japanese barbecue sauce because it's so delicious. And some black sesame seeds, which will add a nice nutty flavor to it as well. I'm jumping out. I'm actually gonna, they're still cold. I'm gonna actually snap a couple of them in half. That way they'll kind of coat up, they'll flip a little bit easier. Normally I love to do my green beans in the oven and roast them with olive oil and black pepper. And so I leave them nice and long, but they are harder to twist up if you saute them when they're really long. There we go. Just use a nice little kind of coating around. And then I'm going to turn this down low and just kind of do kind of a low saute on them. Let them kind of cook up. If you wanted to do them faster, you could do a blanch first, and then you could do a quick sear on them. But I'm just going to do a kind of a low but longer saute on them. And then I drizzle a little bit with the Japanese barbecue sauce right here. Just a little bit to add a little bit of flavor now, but not much. And then we'll see, of course, at the end if we need any more. Turn it down, do a low. Now let's finish up our caprese. Got a few more tomatoes here. We're gonna kind of slice up, and then we're gonna add our basil leaf, and then our fresh mozzarella. This is one of those things where I feel like it's the quintessential summer salad. So good. We might have to do some double stacking. That's okay. Okay, we've got these. Now, I'm going to do my basil leaf on each one. So fresh basil. So I picked these from my garden. And I like a big leaf of basil with everyone's. Now, some people might like them a little bit, you know, less basil, but I love the taste of fresh basil. It's so good. And it's one of those things where when you can have it growing in your garden, now's the time to use it. There we go. I also love to make basil lemonade. You might think, oh, that's a savory, and it goes really well together. Okay, a few more out. And then I've got my fresh mozzarella. Now these are gonna be pretty big slices, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut them in half. Probably only gonna use half this package. So before we cut them, let me get this out. I am going to pour out a little bit of that so it doesn't spill everywhere. Flip our salmon because I have noticed, it's kind of hard to tell in here, but you can kind of see it's getting white and I'm starting to see my little crispy edges around them. So I'm gonna flip them so it can cook on the other side way. So we're gonna flip it over. There we go. Beautiful. This is great. It's a fish spatula, which makes it long. It has a curving, which makes it much easier to flip fish, which can be a bit more delicate than, say, a chicken fillet. There we go. So we've got our first round of salmon cooking right here. I'm going to actually flip this one, cook a little bit more over here. I've got it on about a 4. I'm going to mix up my glaze. And we're just gonna add a little bit more on the top. And this will kind of coat in and cook into it. And this is the same glaze we used the thing, but we heated it up and then added a little bit of butter. And then we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of black sesame seeds on them as well. This will just give you a nice little nuttiness flavor to it and a great kind of little crunch. Okay, I'll use this one for the second batch. So we'll let that cook. Let's get our mozzarella on. So we're gonna cut it in half so we're not getting just about a half onto each one. So it's about a good, look at these, I had some black sesame seeds on me. And I'll just put these on each little tomato thing. And then I do it in this order because I feel like the mozzarella holds the basil onto the tomato. But you want the mozzarella to get the balsamic vinegar, the glaze, because that will soak in the flavor. And I think it works out much better this way, this order. Some people will put the basil leaf on top, but I always find that then it just like falls off. Look at this. Did I like make it perfect or what? Literally perfect. So we're gonna drizzle. I'm gonna do a quick little drizzle of some balsamic glaze, which is just balsamic vinegar that has been reduced, so it's a little bit sweeter and not as tart. We're gonna do a little bit of drizzle here. And then for my 2 pieces that I do, I don't have enough for everyone.
And this one.
I did Oda right there. Of course, I drizzle and I miss the very one in the middle. We're gonna do a little bit more on top. But I'm gonna use the rest of my tomatoes that I can to put on top. You don't have to have a sandwich on top if you don't want to. But if you're like me and you really love your tomatoes, this is how you gotta do it. There we go. And then we'll drizzle just a little bit more on those. And that's just a super simple, easy salad that will be great with tonight's dinner. Refreshing, lovely. Let me grab out a tray here because my salmon is looking pretty almost done here. I'm gonna do a quick rotate and then we'll get our next one going in.
You have a question? What was the sauce you put on?
It is balsamic glaze, which is a reduction of balsamic vinegar, which is a little bit sweeter and not as tart, but it gives you that nice flavor that balsamic has. Let's give our green beans a nice little toss. Maybe not so rough. You don't want to go overboard. Here we go. Okay, and you can tell they're starting to cook through and get that tender crisp because you see these are undercooked because they're more white. So you're getting that more vibrant green. That means you're gonna have that tender but has a crunch still to it, which I love, but it's not like you're chewing on a raw green bean. It's what I call that tender crisp or the tender crunch. Okay, let's get this guy sliding. Where is, I'm gonna have to use another little one. These are kind of long and skinny. When I buy my salmon fillets, I buy them nice and big from Costco, and then I slice them up into individual servings. So I wanna make sure. Here. And I always cook my fattest ones first so that they stay the warmest the longest, and my thinner ones my second round because, you know, we are a big family, so I can't fit them all in my skillet at one time.
You have a question? Are the pups back home?
They are. They actually got home like a day or so before us, and then my father-in-law came and took care of them while we were gone. My oldest daughter and my niece arrived before us too, because she has a nice class, or a Vanderbilt class. She's going to a little college class this week. So we're gonna add a nice, again, another little drizzle, a little extra flavor. And that will be our miso glazed salmon. So they actually flew back a day before us.
You have a question? Can you make the balsamic glaze yourself?
You can. All you have to do really is put balsamic vinegar on a small pan like this, and you let it over low heat until all of its natural liquids come out. And then it thickens up and you have it. You can also add a little bit of sugar to make it a bit sweeter if you wanted to. But yes, I've definitely made it before in my past. But it is one of those things that is really easy to just buy, and it saves you a couple of hours of washing it over the stove. But it's just like any little reductions you were to make.
You have a request to go over the miso glaze ingredients?
Yes. Let me pop this in here and give my hand a quick rinse. Okay. So, for the miso glaze, or probably best if I show everything, we start with miso paste. So I used about a tablespoon of the miso paste. And then I added about a tablespoon of olive oil and a half a tablespoon of sesame oil. About a tablespoon of honey. A tablespoon of coconut aminos. A teaspoon of ginger paste. About a half a teaspoon of vinegar. Mirin or rice vinegar would be the best, but I just had this. And then I added about a tablespoon or so of garlic to it. And then about 2 tablespoons of Japanese barbecue sauce. And that is pretty much the base to our glaze on it. And then I glazed them, let them marinate in it first, and then I reheated up my glaze, adds a little butter, and that's kind of like a sauce to go over it at the end. So you have extra and you're not wasting it. But it will be that sweet, savory, kind of that lovely umami taste that is just wonderful. Okay, our green beans are getting to where we are they're getting lovely. You just got to keep making sure my ones that are more white go onto the bottom. But that's, if you're always wondering oh, how long do I need to cook them? You want them to be around this color. You don't want them white. that white means they're gonna be crunchy and more raw. So, I'm gonna push those ones that didn't get on there towards the bottom to let those kind of heat up. And then we will add a little bit more of our Japanese barbecue sauce and then some black sesame seeds to that. And it's super simple, really delicious. I'm gonna also give a little bit of garlic salt to it. Just a smidge. Gotta use garlic salt. I realize I haven't used it in anything today. But I don't want to over drench mine in barbecue sauce, the Japanese barbecue sauce, because you don't want them to get mushy. You want them to still be firm and more of like a sticky glaze on them. So I don't use too much of it. Okay, our salmon is looking good here. I can see, you can see it starting to get like white around the edges, and that's letting me know that it is time to flip. There we go. And let's slide it under there. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back over with a little bit of my glaze right here that I had. We'll do one more at the end, but this just is gonna give you all that flavor that will sometimes fall off in your pan when you're cooking it. So we're gonna go back over with that, and then I've got my black sesame seeds. And I only do the black sesame seeds on one side so that they don't fall off into my pan and like start cooking more, because they can kind of crisp up really fast, and then you can get like a burnt sesame taste to it. So I just kind of sprinkle it on the top towards the end.
You have a question? Does salmon have a strong fish taste?
I don't think it has a super strong fish taste. I think it's more milder of the fishes and whatnot. It has a very unique taste, which is very different from like a cod or a whitefish. I think it's really lovely, and I think it pairs. You can do it, it's very versatile. You can do Asian themes, pan-fried with it. You can do Mediterranean themes. So I really like it. I was deciding between Mediterranean or, but then my delicious salmon where you grind it in salt and sugar for about 2 hours. And I was like, I'm not that put together today, but soon we're gonna do it like this, where it's delicious. Okay, let's give these a toss.
Do you have a question? Have you ever made anything from canned salmon?
I actually have, but when I use canned salmon, I make it as either like a salmon salad or a dip. So I make with kind of salmon and then liquid smoke, garlic, salt, green onions, and mayo, and it makes the best salmon salad. It's like a tuna salad, but it's salmon salad. It's so good. I love it. So yes, but I don't use it as if I'm gonna be like cooking for dinner, because it's too like it's been cooked more, so it lends itself better to like a salad or a dip. We're gonna sprinkle about a teaspoon of our sesame seeds over our green beans. I'm using black. You could also use white sesames. I think black has a little less of that raw sesame taste, so I prefer it a little bit better. And then we're gonna finish off with a little drizzle of Japanese barbecue sauce. And then I'm just gonna turn this up to about an 8, and we're gonna do a quick heat real fast to kind of make this barbecue sauce really stick onto the green beans.
You have a question? Could you also make salmon patties?
I think you can definitely make salmon patties with them and then make kind of like a burger out of it. I will say I have done it once before, but it was when I was in high school, so that was like 20 years ago. But you can definitely do it with it. But I will say I typically love my salmon fillets. Okay, these are just about done. This is kind of like a thinner fillet of salmon, so it's cooked up really fast. So I'm gonna take these off and add them over here. And then we're gonna get ready to kind of plate up. There we go. And I'm gonna leave my last one in here, and that will just take it for our plate. Now I have not forgotten about the green onions. This is what you're gonna throw on your salmon at the very end, and they're also gonna go into your green beans. So just slice them nice and small. It's gonna add a great little like bright flavor to it. You could also use chives, but I find that the green onions have an even more oniony flavor, a bit more strong. So we're gonna sprinkle it over so you have this nice little fresh onion flavor to it. I've got one in my pan that we'll use up for my plating since I don't have room on there. And then we're gonna sprinkle these over the green beans. So we have the kind of sweet caramelized onion in there. I'm gonna turn it off now. And then we're gonna kind of finish with some really fresh green onions, which will give you kind of that fresh and sweet and I guess savory. Here we go. So you can see like my regular caramelized onions, the yellow ones I use, it's kind of picked up all of that barbecue sauce, like Japanese barbecue sauce and miso flavor. So it will have a nice contrast. Okay. Look at our rice. This is our onion chicken rice that we have steamed up. It was a big pot, but my little pot was not gonna be, it would be overflowing. So I have this in the middle. I'm gonna give it a nice stir. And we are ready to serve up dinner, which is good. Okay, let me grab my plate. Let me set this one. And we'll have ours. Okay, so our first, we're gonna start off with our rice. I'm gonna make a nice bed of it. This is what we seasoned with the chicken bouillon, green onions, and fresh oregano. You want a nice little bed on it, but those green onions are gonna give it a nice, lovely flavor. And then I've got my filet in here. Add this, slide that on. Oh, don't fall apart on me. There we go. So we've got our salmon. And then I'm gonna do a little drizzle of our little miso glaze that we made, going right over it with, this is what we marinated our salmon in, and then we reheated it up. And then we will have our sesame miso glaze green beans as a side with both green onions and caramelized onions that have that miso paste really filled up in the flavors. And then of course, let's not forget our delicious mozzarella tomato salad, the Caprese salad, so good. This will be, this is my favorite part. This is gonna be delicious with dinner tonight. So really fresh, kind of really playing on like, we had so much barbecued food while we're gone, so I wanted a light meal for dinner today. But again, we're done. Thank you guys for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we cook for, so miso glazed salmon, and then you could rewatch and cook along with me again at home. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront, so if you are interested in any of the cooking utensils or pans and pots and pans we use, I have all of those on my Amazon storefront that you can check out as well. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.